He finally said it. Taehyung's hidden love story breaks ARMY's hearts forever. But before we dive into the truth behind Taehyung's hidden words, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, you've just stepped into one of the most passionate BTS communities on YouTube. We dive deep, beyond the headlines, into the real stories behind the world's biggest band. So, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. Now, let's begin. It happened quietly, without the chaos of flashing cameras or the noise of screaming crowds. Taehyung was seated under the warm glow of amber lights during an intimate conversation, a rare moment where the world wasn't watching his every move. His voice was soft, almost hesitant, as though pulling memories from a place he had tried to keep locked away. The words he chose were simple, but they carried the weight of years. People often forget that behind the music, the style, and the stage lights, Taehyung is a young man who grew up in the whirlwind of fame. He debuted at just 18 years old, an age where most of us are figuring out who we are, while he was already standing under stadium lights. Love, for him, was never just about romance. It was a dangerous game where privacy could be shattered in a second. One wrong word, one careless photo, and the whole world would decide what it meant. And yet, in this small, private moment, he chose to speak. He described a time, not recently, but years ago, when he met someone who changed the way he looked at love. He didn't name her. He didn't have to. The way his tone shifted, the way his gaze dropped for just a fraction of a second, said everything. This wasn't a crush or a passing feeling, it was something deeper, a quiet fire that had burned even when he tried to extinguish it. He admitted he had once wanted to shout it to the world, to tell ARMY that he had found someone who made the chaos of fame feel like silence. But fear stopped him. Fear for her, that she would be hunted by the media, picked apart by strangers, and reduced to a headline. Fear for himself, that loving openly might change the way fans saw him, or worse, hurt BTS as a whole. And so, he stayed silent. For years, this part of him remained hidden behind every smile on stage, every playful interview answer, every moment we thought we knew the real Taehyung. The truth was always there, but it was buried under the life he had to live. Think about it, BTS has sung about love countless times. But their lyrics are often wrapped in metaphor, leaving us wondering, how much of it comes from real experience? When Taehyung sings about longing, about wanting to be near someone but knowing you can't, was he singing for ARMY, or was he singing for her? What makes this revelation so haunting is the timing. Taehyung didn't have to say anything now. He could have kept this chapter sealed forever. But he didn't. Which begs the question, why now? Some believe it's because he's finally in a place where he can talk about it without risking as much. Others think this is his way of saying goodbye to a love that shaped him, but could never survive the life he lives. And then there's a third possibility, that the story isn't over at all. If you've followed BTS long enough, you know Taehyung's way with words. He often drops small hints, sentences that seem random until months later, when we realize they were pieces of a bigger picture. Could this be one of those moments? Could his sudden honesty be leading us to something? The way he told the story was almost cinematic. He spoke about moments of walking down quiet streets together, disguised under hats and masks. About conversations that lasted until the sun came up, when they both knew dawn meant going back to the reality they couldn't escape. About a promise they made, to never forget each other, no matter what happened. There was no bitterness in his voice. Only a softness, the kind that lingers when you've lost something you know you'll never get back, but are grateful you ever had it all. And this is where it gets even more emotional. As he continued speaking, fans noticed something. His hand kept brushing the small chain he wore that night. A simple piece of jewelry, barely noticeable, unless you knew what to look for. Eagle-eyed ARMY members later compared it to a necklace he had been seen wearing years ago, during an era when rumors quietly swirled about his private life. Coincidence? Or a silent tribute to a love long gone? What makes Taehyung's confession so powerful isn't just the romance, it's what it says about the life of an idol. Imagine being told you can have the world, but in exchange, you must give up the freedom to love openly. Imagine seeing someone who makes your heart race, and knowing from the very first moment that you can never truly be theirs. Taehyung has often said he wants to live like an ordinary man one day, to walk through a park, hold someone's hand without disguises, to share a meal without worrying about a photo leaking online. Maybe this story was his way of showing us that behind the stage persona, behind V of BTS, there's still KimTaehyung, a human being who once loved, lost, and carried that memory quietly through the years. And just when you think you've pieced together the puzzle, there's one part of his story that changes everything. Because what Taehyung said next hinted that this love wasn't just hidden from the public, it might have been hidden from someone else too. Someone very close to him. Taehyung's voice dropped even lower, as though what he was about to say was something he'd never shared aloud before. He admitted that during this hidden chapter of his life, there was one person he couldn't bring himself to tell the full truth to. Not because he didn't trust them, but because he was afraid of what it might change. That person was a fellow member of BTS. He didn't say who. But the way his words slowed, the careful pauses between sentences, made it clear this was someone whose opinion mattered to him more than anything. Perhaps someone protective, someone who would have seen the danger and told him to walk away before it was too late. Maybe even someone who, had they known, might have carried the burden alongside him, but he chose to carry it alone. And that choice shaped everything that came after. We often think of BTS as brothers, sharing everything. But the truth is, even brothers have secrets, sometimes not out of mistrust, but out of love. By keeping it to himself, Taehyung spared them the worry, the risk, the endless questions. Yet you could feel, in the way he spoke, that part of him wondered what might have been different if he had let them in. So the next time Taehyung sings a love song, listen closely. Listen to the way his voice catches on certain words, the way he closes his eyes as if reaching for something just out of sight. You might just hear an echo of the love that broke his heart, and in doing so, made him who he is today. And if you believe in second chances, in the strange way life sometimes brings back the things we've lost, then perhaps one day, this story will find its way to a different ending. Until then, it lives here, in the quiet spaces between the music, in the hearts of those who have listened closely enough to hear it.